Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Welcome to Vox Novus, the new voice. Can you use a bit of goddess wisdom in your life? Do you want to explore your personal power and claim your passions? Do you seek advancement in your career? Are you searching for love or trying to get free of a bad romance? Do you wish you had more confidence and courage? The Divine Feminine is here to help you to achieve the love, success, and happiness that you deserve. My guest this week on Vox Novus, Reverend Laurie Sue Brockway, has written extensively on women's spirituality, self-esteem, emotional health, relationships, and weddings. Her deep interest in goddess studies began when she was a journalist specializing in women's empowerment, and it led her to become an ordained minister focused on interfaith spirituality and women's spirituality. The foundation of her ministry is to celebrate all faiths and traditions and to include all aspects of the divine. For more than 20 years, she's presided over a multicultural wedding ministry based in New York and is widely recognized as an expert on interfaith, intercultural, and highly personalized non-denominational weddings. Her website is revlauriesue.com, and she joins me this week to discuss her path and her book, The Goddess Pages, 36 Divine Females to help guide you to more love, success, and happiness. Please join me in welcoming to Vox Novus Reverend Laurie Sue Brockway. Welcome.
Hi, Victor. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And for our listeners who don't know, you and I are married, aren't we?
And we're just in different rooms tonight.
in different rooms. And we actually just celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary. So happy anniversary, honey.
Thank you, honey. 21 years total.
21 years together, 16 years married, and I am married to the goddess. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But please share with our listeners meeting you for the first time a little about your path and how it led to Interfaith Ministry.
Well, a lot of major transformation happens in people's lives when they lose somebody close. And at that point in my life, I had lost my father. And I was working as an editor-in-chief of a national magazine. And with a couple of friends of mine, I ended up doing his funeral. And the minister that my uncle brought to the cemetery said to me, "Had you ever thought of becoming a minister?" And I said, "No, I had not," because about a week earlier, I had left a 3-year stint with Playgirl magazine, and I just didn't see myself as someone who would become a minister. But I remembered Rabbi Joseph Gelberman, having met him over the years through various New Age functions, and that he had a seminary where anyone could come to him of any religion and learn different faiths. And at the time, while I was at a Single Living magazine, I had also begun studying and developing an interest in the goddess, and I was part of a really wonderful goddess group of New York women. And this whole idea of there being a feminine divine to match with the male divine began to open as an idea. And so I ended up going to seminary, and the year or so that I was in my intensive studies before I was ordained, I was teaching women's spirituality courses and learning more about the goddess as I went along. And I was also beginning to study and worship at the Hindu temple in Flushing because I became very attracted to some of the Hindu goddesses and just learning more about the worship. So all of this started to happen while I was in seminary. And I also noticed while I was in seminary that there was not too much teaching on goddesses or goddess religions. There was definitely teaching about the goddess because it was a very in-depth kind of interfaith training. But I would sit in the classroom and I'd hear the Hindu priest or people from other traditions, and I was always waiting for them to talk more about the goddess, and I didn't hear it there. So I began to research it on my own.
Now let's talk about the Hindu feminine divine. Why did that become your special focus?
Well, before I met you, you and I knew each other, but we weren't a couple. But when I was in seminary, I was basically a single mother supporting a special needs son. And I had to give up the work I'd been doing because I sort of became like a nun, having been writing books about sexuality and working on a magazine about sexuality. I really had and chose to switch gears. And I came to a point where I had no money because I had given up all the work that I had been doing, and I was turning down any kind of assignment that didn't align with my spiritual journey. And I had, as you know, a special needs child who had a lot of medical issues. And I went into my bathroom one night to pray. Well, I used to pray in the bathroom when he slept, and I'd bring a stick of incense in with me. And I went into the bathroom one night to pray because I was like desperate about money. I didn't think I could even finish paying for my seminary program. And in some sort of magical moment, in a puff of smoke, because I remembered I had been learning in seminary that the prayers go up to the gods in smoke. In my mind's eye, I saw this female in a green sari who said to me, "Build a shrine to me." And I thought, oh my God, I'm hallucinating. Build a shrine to me. And I honestly didn't know who she was. And my friend Patricia Keneally Morrison, who really was my goddess friend and soul friend who got me on the goddess path and was also teaching me around this time, she had taken me to this wonderful Hindu store in the city. We went shopping for goddess icons, and she introduced me to this man who owned a store that became sort of one of the places I went to as if it was a temple every few weeks. And I was sitting on the floor in his store looking through this big stack of postcards from India. Everything was imported from India, but it was in New York City. And I found this picture of somebody who looked like my vision, and he said it was the goddess Lakshmi.
And so Goddess Lakshmi became your special divine guide.
Yes, and she remains, as you know, by all the icons and honoring of her in our house, she remains a very special goddess because, there are many, many, many beautiful, wonderful goddesses from all different traditions. But I love Lakshmi because Lakshmi is all about beauty and love and generosity. And she's become a universal goddess. Years ago, when I first started on this journey over 20 years ago, she was lesser known. And now if you put her name into Amazon or any place where you could buy icons or posters, you see so many renditions of her. And in that original vision, when she said, "Build a shrine to me," I literally bought a huge Lakshmi icon. I started with a tiny one because that's all I could find and that's all I could afford at the time. And I worked my way up to this 2-foot icon, and people used to come to my apartment in New York and sit on the floor and pray at the goddess Lakshmi altar. And then during that time period, I wanted to write a book about her.
Now, for those who have never seen a statue of Lakshmi or an image of Lakshmi, describe what she looks like and the various things that she's holding.
Well, she's a beautiful Hindu woman, and she is mostly always smiling. And she is always looking as if she's offering blessings. And from her hands, she has 4 arms. She's usually holding 2 lotuses, which represent purity, spirituality, growing to the light from the mud. And she's pouring coins out of one hand into the milky ocean from which she arose. And she's usually holding I can't remember the name of it. It's like a gold canister that also usually has coins in it or something fruitful. And she's sometimes surrounded by elephants. She's always wearing a beautiful sari, and she's got jewelry. And in her mythology, it's said that she grew from the milky ocean and the stirring of the sea by the gods. The gods and the demons were stirring the sea, and Lakshmi was one of the things. They were fighting each other, and they started stirring the sea, and Lakshmi was one of the beautiful things that came out of it, fully grown on a lotus. And you'll always see her sitting on a pink lotus. And she just has a very beautiful energy. In the Hindu tradition, she's just so beloved because she brings wealth. She's the goddess of wealth. And that means wealth that is both spiritual and material. She's all about helping good things come to life. And she's just a very beautiful energy.
Now, what is the worship service called, and what takes place during a worship service of a goddess like Lakshmi?
Well, there's a few different kinds, but the typical service may be a Lakshmi puja. And back 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, when I was learning this, I spent a lot of time at the temple, and for $51, you could ask the priest to do a Lakshmi puja. And that's one of the ways I learned how to honor her, by watching the priests. They mostly did not speak English, but they were able to impart the rituals, because the rituals don't need words. However, they do have words because they have Sanskrit chants, which I am not capable of doing. So when you hear the priests in the temple, or anybody who knows how to do puja, doing the chants, or what's called archana, the 108 names of the goddess, it's really beautiful. It just sort of changes your brain science.
Now, I attended a couple of pujas with you. We're talking about the Temple Society here in Flushing, New York. We live in Queens, New York, and this is Flushing, not too far from where we live. And first of all, when you approach this block, it looks like this temple was dropped out of the sky from India. It's amazing. Yeah. It's breathtakingly beautiful. Gorgeous. And I always thought of, I didn't know about Hindu worship services, and I always thought about people chanting, sitting quietly and chanting Om or chanting something and sort of very quietly participating. And it turns out it's not a quiet place to be inside during a puja, because there's a lot of activity, a lot of noise, a lot of chanting, and also the priests take a form of milk and they bathe yogurt and milk, and they bathe the deities with it.
Yes, that's part of the archana and the bathing of the deities. And actually, you may remember that when you did go with me, and every time I have gone also, I always brought a gallon of milk. But people would also bring yogurt and fruit and bananas, and they will bathe the deities in every single bit of food item that has been brought by worshipers until it's done, chanting the whole time. And then they'll wash the deities down, and they'll close the door, and they'll redress her or them. There's actually I think 10 deities in that. There's a lot of deities in that temple, but there's 4 corners, and she's in one of the corners. So it's really something. And when somebody wants to acknowledge that they've completed their worship, they ring a bell. There's bells ringing all over the place. That's why Hindu weddings are always so interesting. And I have to explain when I do a Hindu interfaith wedding, I have to always explain to the non-Hindu part of the couple that the different cultures celebrate marriage in different ways. So we have to find that in-between place where everybody feels comfortable.
And what I learned from you and from attending the services, the pujas with you, is that each of these deities represent a different aspect of life. And whatever aspect of life you're looking to develop and encourage in your own life, be it romantic relationships, prosperity, whatever it may be, health, that there's a specific deity, and by performing puja with that deity, you're asking for their assistance and their beneficence in terms of what you're going through. Absolutely.
People in the Hindu tradition honor their sacred relationships with their sacred males and females. And every family has a god or gods or goddesses. And it's just a beautiful thing. That's why I fell in love with that tradition, because it's so normal for people to commune and communicate and pray to and pray with deities who are both male and female. It's something that was something that I barely saw when I first started my journey to the goddess. I wasn't able to see a live reference to this. In the temple, you can really see that come alive. And then, of course, I met so many and learned from so many Hindu wisdom teachers over the years that I began to learn more and more about the secrets and also just the general information that's available to everyone about every single deity. And the female deities also have consorts. So there's a belief that the male is empowered by the Shakti and the female is empowered by the male. They're a unit. So that's also a beautiful thing, because it's not an either or. It's Lakshmi and Vishnu. It's Saraswati and Brahma. It's Shiva and Parvati, or the Kali aspect of Parvati. And also in the pantheon of female deities, there is a range of the very kind of mild and gentle goddesses, and it goes to another realm of the darker and more intense goddesses and warrior goddesses like Durga and Kali. And, there's so much rich history. It's really the oldest religion, and it's just so rich. And again, I think Lakshmi is a universal goddess. She's beloved and she hails from the Hindu tradition, but I believe that Hindu people agree to share her with everybody.
Absolutely. It's interesting that when Laurie Sue and I first connected through the seminary, we both connected through the seminary, and she and I began a relationship where most men will court in a relationship with flowers and candy and things of that nature. I bought her deities.
You wooed me with goddess statues.
I wooed her with goddess statues, and our house looks like, between Hinduism and Egyptian pantheon and so many others, and Greek pantheon,
Christian, Greek,
everything. We have a museum here in our house with all of these wonderful, wonderful representations of the divine in all of their aspects. My guest is my beloved, my wife, Reverend Laurie Sue Brockway. We're going to be talking about her book, The Goddess Pages, the new edition of The Goddess Pages, after the break. Laurie Sue, tell our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you and all of this amazing work you do.
Well, I'm going to say that most of my books right now are on Amazon, and you can find any book that I have published is on Amazon. I'm now putting some of what they would call my backlist. I'm republishing some of my older books and doing some new ones, and they are all on Amazon. If they're not live yet, they will be in the next few months, but Goddess Pages is live on October 1st. And I put it at a very low price for now, just to make it available to a lot of people.
And your website?
It's RevLaurieSue.com.
And we'll be back with more of my beloved Rev Laurie Sue and her work in the feminine divine after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm going to take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Hi, this is David Strickle. I'm excited to share my brand new show, The Stream of David Live, right here on OMTimes Radio. Each week, I'll have exciting guests, and I'll channel the eternal wisdom of the stream, a group of non-physical entities whose teachings have transformed lives all over the world. So join us for an uplifting hour each Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's the Stream of David Live, right here on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, this is Bill Maher. I can find humor in almost anything, but one thing I never laugh about is cruelty to animals. If you don't get the joke either, write People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, 501 Front Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23510.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Look out, world, we're getting strong. The future's here and we belong. She can STEM, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Or clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM, so can you. Find a cure, invent something new. There's no challenge in the world that she can't face. She can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is my wife, my beloved Reverend Laurie Sue Brockway. We're talking about her path with the feminine divine and her special love for the goddesses. You just published the 18th anniversary edition of the Goddess Pages. Tell us a little about the history of this book.
Well, I thank you for asking that, because this book has been really triply blessed in that this is the third time. It's been revised every time it's published, but this is the third time it has been published, and this is the first time that's been published in ebook form. Back to my appreciation of Lakshmi, many years ago, 20 years ago or so, I put together a proposal for a book on Lakshmi, and my dear friends Ariel Ford and Brian Hilliard at the time represented me when they were agents, and they took the book idea to Penguin, and we had a meeting with this amazing editor named Jen Repo, and she fell in love with the idea, but she wanted Lakshmi to do like 50 different things. And I wasn't ready. She wanted me to write a book for young women that really kind of addressed some of the issues that women faced at that time or at that point in their lives. And it just didn't feel right to do it with Lakshmi alone. So I said, how about if I do like 50 goddesses instead from all traditions? And she said, that's a great idea. So we ended up originally with 31 goddesses, and now there's 36. And what happened is I ended up writing this book around the time that 9/11 happened. So because, and as you know, you and I were working as chaplains for the Red Cross, it was a scary time. I had wanted this book to be very, very upbeat and just filled with fun goddesses. But in the space of what had happened in our world, I started adding some protection goddesses like Durga and Tara and different aspects of the divine feminine that could help people, help women especially with this book, with fearful moments. And the other thing about this book was it was always meant to help women know the goddess within. And one of my beliefs then and now is that without a divine female to stand next to the divine male or be at the table with the divine male, then women don't have an image of themselves as divine. The only divinity we grow up with is a god without a goddess. And I think history and many feminist scholars have shown us that a lot of the history was rewritten over time. And so I really wanted to put together a book that allowed women to kind of see themselves in various divine feminine figures. So that is how the book came about.
Give us an example of some of the goddesses that you feature.
Well, it begins with reclaiming Eve because she's the mother of us all, and she got accused of screwing us all up, and I think it was a bum rap. So really, and also I do look at everyone as a goddess. Mary Magdalene, Sophia, they're all goddesses to me.
And in the Hebrew tradition, Shekinah is the feminine aspect of God in the Hebrew tradition, the Jewish tradition.
Yes, and now Shekinah is actually in my book, Goddess Lessons. She is not in the Goddess Pages, but she is in my other book. In this book, it's Hathor, the Egyptian goddess of love. It's Lilith, the Hebrew goddess, who is said to be Adam's first wife. It's Oya, the Yoruban goddess of wind and hurricanes. Nike, Greek goddess of victory. Mary, the mother of Jesus. Sophia, goddess of wisdom. Kuan Yin, Chinese goddess of healing and compassion. Green Tara, Tibetan Buddhist of protection. White buffalo woman, Native American spirit woman. And everyone's kind of put into their own sections. So those were the self-empowerment and strength goddesses. And we also have the goddesses of love and romance, like Venus and Ocean, the Macumban goddess of sensuality, and Freya, the Norse goddess of sexual prowess, and Persephone, the Greek goddess of springtime, and Gauri, who is the Hindu goddess of love and marriage, and Radha, the sacred consort of Hindu avatar Krishna, Isis, the Egyptian goddess, and then in the realm of family life and friendship is the great goddess, and Pele, who's the Hawaiian goddess, and Kali, who is the Hindu goddess of life. St. Lucy is in there. The Muses are in there. Mary Magdalene is the goddess that I use to help us through grief. And Vesta, the Roman goddess of the hearth, assists you in creating a true home. Much of the goddess history was rewritten to change the pronouns. And as much as we live in a world where we're trying to get rid of pronouns, I think that it's important to have the she with the he when it comes to divinity. And there's a new book out by Elizabeth Lesser that talks about how would the world be if women actually wrote their own history. So a lot of the goddess history has been dropped out. As a result, I think that's one of the reasons that women have a lot of self-esteem issues.
There's a poem in your book called There Are So Many Goddesses. May I read that?
Sure.
There are mild goddesses and there are wild goddesses. We need them all. They show us how to embody all that we are. There are light goddesses and there are dark goddesses. We need them all. They show us deeper levels of the self, and they help us to know the truth. There are famous goddesses and lesser-known goddesses. We need them all. They teach us about the mysteries and help us reach our dreams. There are maiden and mother goddesses, queen and wise woman goddesses. We need them all. They guide us on the path we're meant to travel. They help us to become more skillful and wise. There are goddesses who will stand by us and guide us as we remember how to rebirth ourselves at any stage and stand again in our own full power as we claim what is rightfully ours. We need them all. What a lovely poem, Laurie Sue.
Thank you. I wrote that while I was in seminary, and it just sort of happened to fall into the second edition of Goddess Pages, which was published by Llewellyn by Bill Krause, who is a wonderful human being and who gave the Goddess Pages a second life when it started to go out of print from Penguin. And I'm very grateful for him for returning the rights to me so I could publish it through my own imprint.
Now, some of the goddesses that you mention in the Goddess Pages, are there folks who follow, other than the Hindu, obviously the Hindu religion, are there folks who follow those goddesses in specific areas of the world?
Well, yes. Most of the goddesses in here come from different traditions, and they're followed in different ways. Celtic goddesses in the Celtic lands are actively followed, and there are priestess trainings that are devoted to particular goddesses. In the Celtic tradition, Brigid is one of the Celtic goddesses. They have their own history and they come alive in that part of the world in a different way. And the Yoruban goddesses are are part of a number of different cultures, originally African and Brazilian cultures, and they are actively worshipped. And I really searched for a big part of my life for a way to train more in this area, and it was hard to find. I felt like I had to really look at, as you know, there's a library of about 1,000 goddess books in this house, and they are active in some cultures, but they mostly have been brought alive through pagan worship in multiple different forms. And I believe right now there is this movement resurfacing that's not just a pagan movement at all. It's really just like an interspiritual celebration of the goddess, of people who just love the goddess and want to be with other people who feel comfortable with the energies of the goddess. And I think the other thing that's happening right now is that clearly our world is again spinning out of control, and the earth is our mother. There's a Lakota chant, the earth is our mother, we must take care of her. We haven't taken care of her, and she's speaking to us very loudly, and hopefully her cries will be heard. But in the tone and the tensions in the world, without the feminine, without the mother, it's very hard to bring in that softness and that love.
You had mentioned Brigid, and a lot of the goddesses, depending upon where Christianity came up, that those goddesses became saints in the Christian traditions.
Yes, you're absolutely right. She is Saint Bridget, and her story was carried on, and there's still a group that lights a flame to her. There was a convent of nuns who would hold a flame for her for 19 days, and then it would pass from one nun to another to keep the light going, because she's a goddess of light. She's a triple goddess. And then she was absorbed, when things changed in the English countryside and the pagans didn't really want to give up their gods and goddesses, they were turned into saints. And it looks to me like, I'm not a scholar, but it looks to me like the liturgy of the Catholic Church even is based on what used to be known and still known as the Wheel of the Year. A lot of similarities. So that happened to some of the goddesses too.
What would you say to someone listening to us tonight who is attracted to this concept of the goddess, the divine energy? How would they begin a practice?
So personal for every person, and they come to it from such a different place. People come to a practice from different religions. They may feel afraid to worship a goddess or to look into who the goddesses are because of their religious background. And one of the best ways that I know of to learn something is to read. If I have an interest in a topic, I will look for a book on that topic. That's how the Goddess Pages was written, because I couldn't find the book that I was looking for also in that realm. And I ended up putting together by researching far and wide as much information as I could get. But I think one of the things is they can, if they read a book like Goddess Pages or one of the other books that's out there that talks about individual goddesses, you can get a sense of what energy feels right. Do I like working with Hathor because she's a beauty goddess, or would I rather work with Venus, who's a self-love goddess? Do I want to work with Kali Ma or Durga or Isis? You just sort of have to learn a little bit about individual goddesses and see which one calls to you and resonates to you. And the other way that people can learn, and this is how I learned originally, was I got the oracle deck called the Goddess Oracle. It was the first one out there that I ever heard of, that I think it was the original one, by Amy Sophia Marinchinsky. And it's a really fabulous little book that comes with these cards, and you pull a card and it explains who that goddess is. There are many other decks out there right now, but that was the one that I learned from. And if I hadn't looked at that oracle deck, I just would have had no idea that there were 52 goddesses in there. I had no idea there were 52 goddesses that existed in the universe or on some plane or in some history or mythology.
And again, as our beloved teacher, Rabbi Joseph Gelberman, who founded the new seminary, used to say, never instead of, always in addition to. So one can have their foundational faith and still be strong in that faith while exploring if there are aspects of the feminine and divine that they're attracted to.
Absolutely. It's never about leaving a faith. It's never about betraying your family or people. But goddess is one of those touchy subjects, I'm sorry to say. People, not everybody understands, or some people get offended by the idea of mentioning the word goddess. And there's some people who love the goddess who get offended by the idea of people not including her. I mean, I come from the school of, I just think the goddess should be included with God, and I just don't think it's one without the other. And the world is more open now, but in some cases it's not. So I think also I would say Phyllis Karat has been teaching on this topic, and she has a new oracle deck. She has a new tarot deck, which people can also learn from, or just look up Goddess Oracle on Amazon and start there, or look at the Goddess Pages, because it presents just a number of different goddesses in different ways that you can call to them and work with them.
And empower yourself with whatever aspects of the goddess that you're attracted to bring those aspects into your life. My guest, Reverend Laurie Sue Brockway, my wife, and she's the author of the Goddess Pages, and we'll be back with more of Laurie Sue after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
I'm Kathy Williams, host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life radio show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. On the show, we explore living abundantly in every area of your life. Ways to let go of limiting patterns and beliefs and to step into the flow of creativity and possibility, knowing you are supported by the universe.
Hey everybody, it's time for today's STEM tip. Want to know how to make your selfies even better? Okay, let's use science. The best time for photos is golden hour. That's the moment right before the sun sets, when the atmosphere scatters blue and violet wavelengths, making perfect, soft, and golden selfie light to show off that beautiful face of yours. Click. Check out Chic and STEM for more inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is my wife, my beloved Reverend Laurie Sue Brockway. We're talking about her new book, The Goddess Pages. Laurie Sue, are there prayers or affirmations for those who follow the goddess?
Well, I think there are many. I'll read a few of them from the book. This is one of the affirmations that I really love from the Hathor chapter, which is all about acknowledging your inner beauty, which I hope this whole book helps people acknowledge their inner beauty, because that is really what the goddess is all about, like really getting your own divinity, understanding how precious you are. So here's the affirmation. In the book, we suggest that you have a mirror, because the goddess Hathor had a mirror of beauty that people would look through. So looking at yourself in the mirror, you would say, I am divine, I am beauty, I am love, I am a magnificent being, I am a goddess.
You have another example?
Yeah, and if you wanted to pray for wisdom, this is a prayer to Sophia. May the spirit of wisdom shine her light in my consciousness and connect me to my truth and my highest mind now and always.
Oh, that's beautiful. What are some of the other books that you have published in the goddess realm?
Well, I did finally do the book on Lakshmi, and that book, I originally published it as a smaller book about 8 years ago, and I redid it. It's actually going to be republished again in a bit. The book on Lakshmi is called Lakshmi Magic, and it's really about working specifically, directly with the energies of Lakshmi. And here's a prayer for Lakshmi. Dearest Mahalakshmi, Mother Lakshmi, who resides in the pink lotus, who wears a red sari, and who is gifted with great beauty, please come into my life. Brilliant Lakshmi, who is loved by Vishnu, the gods and the sages, please bring your light into my life. Generous Lakshmi, who has 4 arms, who carries 2 lotuses, who wards off evil, and who pours forth abundance of the universe, please bless me with your bounty and help me increase my finances now. Along with Lakshmi Magic, there's a book called Lakshmi, because Lakshmi, as many goddesses, has a dark sister, and the dark sisters are always there to help us be able to explore and honor our shadow selves. And so Lakshmi is the scary goddess, and on the holiday of Diwali, the night before, on Diwali Eve, some people bang pots and pans to scare her away, or they do puja to her to worship her. And that little book called Lakshmi is really about helping people just sort of clear their lives of bad fortune.
You lost your mom on June of 2018. I lost my mom earlier this year in January. Is there a relationship between the feminine divine and our earthly mothers?
I think so, because it's all connected. The earth is our mother. Mothers are the power that bring forth life. Mothers are the womb of life. Just as the earth is the womb of life, she births flowers and trees, the beautiful tree in our backyard. She feeds the squirrels along with you and the birds. And our mothers are like, I see our mothers like our divine mother. Now, my mother and I had some challenges when I was growing up, and I sought a spiritual mother because my mother was not that, and she'd be the first one to say she was not. But after her death, I have returned to the goddess. And to be very honest, I wrote the first book called A Goddess is a Girl's Best Friend. It was published in 2002. And you remember back then you were schlepping all the goddesses to the Muse Hotel for the book party. And, many times you drove me with all the goddess icons so I could do book signings and do speaking engagements and teach about the goddess. And over time, I began to feel like there wasn't as much interest. And I focused on my wedding ministry, and that's what I've been doing for 20 years, and marrying couples, doing a lot of Hindu interfaith weddings. And I just kept the goddess to myself in my own practice. And after my mother died, I began this journey that kind of led me back to where I was 20 years ago, but it's a spiral, so I'm in a different place. And I just think it's so important that we allow ourselves to recognize the goddess within and the connection to the goddess through our mothers. And I really think that mothers are divine and women are divine. And women are the ones who bring new life into this world, and there's a greater appreciation for that. So, and I think also when we miss our mothers, that we are not, first of all, really without them, because I don't believe that our loved ones really totally leave us. But I also think that we are able to have the embrace of our sacred mothers, our divine mothers, who are part of this universe and there for us too.
You know, most of the wisdom that I have in my life, I lost my dad when I was 15, and there was a lot of business wisdom that I got from him. But most of the spiritual and emotional and compassion wisdom that I have in my life is because of my mom. And I'll always be grateful to her for that. Your mom was a goddess of frugality. She was a goddess a goddess of someone who could save money and make money and really knew how to work and make currency flow. So that was her trait and her talent.
She was Lakshmi.
She was Lakshmi. She was the goddess of prosperity. So these representations of the goddess are reflections, really, of our earthly mothers, and in some cases, the highest attributes that we would want from our own earthly mothers.
Yes, and if you look at the kind of icons that are available, there are actually so many statues of goddesses, and they all look like humans, and they all look like our mothers, our sisters, our friends. And, you know, just as the divine represents us, all of us, in every person with any kind of background, it's not just male that's represented in the divine, and we're all divine. And I hope that's what people who read this book can come away with. I'm not asking them to believe in a goddess. I'm not promoting the goddess per se. I really just wanted to make the book available again right now. And so we decided to make it an 18th anniversary edition instead of a 20-year anniversary edition, because it seems like the world could use a little goddess energy right now.
I was going to ask you that. What do you think the feminine divine would do to intervene or intercede in what's happening in our world right now? Or how can women do that?
Well, you know, the Divine Mother would send everyone to their rooms. I mean, the misbehavior that's going on in our world right now is heinous. And, you know, I know that not every feminine or female or person who identifies as female is, you know, soft and mushy and cushy and lovey-dovey, but mothers bring a different energy to the world. And this whole spinning out of control is, you know, a lot of patriarchy spinning out of control. And I you know, it's hard for me to understand how some people don't see that, but some people don't see it because we've been raised to believe in certain things. I think that mothers given a chance to serve and the Divine Mother given a chance to be known to people can help bring balance back, because we're out of balance. And it's not just about the male domination or male energy. It's really has to be the masculine and the feminine. No matter what anybody identifies as, it is this energy of masculine and feminine, dark and light, yin yang, that brings our life into balance. And that is so much of what goddess energy is about.
What would you like your readers to take away from the Goddess pages?
Well, I hope that they still find the goddesses as charming and fun and helpful as I did when I wrote the book originally. And I'm really hoping that a new generation of readers will find their way to this book. You know, I've been studying a lot about the goddess even more recently on a more worldwide basis and how she's worshipped. And I see that different, you know, parts of the world actually do worship differently than we do here in the U.S. So I just think everybody could learn a little something.
Absolutely. And I just want our listeners to know that Laurie Sue has a nickname. She's known as the Book Goddess. And I don't know the exact number at this point, but she's written and published either under her name as Reverend Laurie Sue or Laurie Sue Brockway, and there's a couple of pen names, 35, more than 35 books. So she is definitely the literary goddess and an inspiration to me to get my book finally written and finished. And that will be coming eventually. She's waiting. That'll come eventually. And she's written romance, and she's written, back in the day, a little erotica. But she's also written a lot of books, and one of the things she's working on now, having gone through the process of losing our mothers, caretakers, for those books on caretaking and compassion for caretakers who are in the process of taking care of elderly and infirm parents. So more to come from Laurie Sue. Laurie Sue Brockway, my guest, my wife, my beloved. In addition to Goddess Pages, what other books can listeners find that you've written?
They can find Lakshmi Magic, Goddess Lessons, a Lakshmi, Wedding Goddess.
So many books. Plus, we actually co-authored a book about our beloved four-legged and two-legged and winged companions called Pet Prayers and Blessings that Laurie Sue and I wrote together several years ago, and it's just being republished right now. Laurie Sue, it is so wonderful to have you on and to be sharing your message. Your website is revlauriesue.com, and thank you so much for sharing this with our listeners tonight.
Thank you for the invitation.
And I'll see you in about 5 minutes when I
Love you, honey.
the other room. Love you, honey. And that's it for Vox Novus this week. I'm Victor, the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.